Hi. Let me tell you a story. A very simple story that holds the most significant weight in my life up until this moment. It's a simple story, but a story that I'll always remember for the rest of my life. You may be wondering what that story is. That is a story about my trip, first ever trip to the Russian Federation. In the previous picture, you saw me holding an umbrella. It was a rainy morning when we were starting the program, but it's the same morning that I had the chance to raise the Rwandan flag on behalf of my colleagues when we were starting the program. And in this picture that you see is a picture of my mother and my father. These are people I love so much. These are people who I owe the most important explanation of why I'm in Russia. But at the same time, these are the same people that I did not tell about my coming to Russia. Not until it was 2 days to my flight. Well, gladly, this presentation is going to help me to explain to them why I'm in Russia. In Russia, we had very many discussions. And as you can see from the pictures, we had discussions on the mental psyche. We had discussions on the nervous system. We had discussions about my Africa. It's a session I loved because it's a session where everybody talked about their country and their connection and attachment to their country. And that's a session that really exposed the love that the people I was with in Russia have for their countries. We also had a time to talk about Efko as a social project. This was eye-opening. The story of Efko from 30 years ago up until this moment, and how it has transformed over the years. However, we had a theatrical workshop where we learned techniques of breathing, techniques of gaining mental stability, and techniques of team building. It was all beautiful. It was all perfect. It was a rich experience. But there's one thing that sticks to my mind up until now. And that's my $1 billion lesson. What is it? It's a lesson that I believe, if all of us understood it to the dot, would speak for itself. It's a lesson that up until today, I know that it still applies for all the 8 billion people in the world. And what is that? It's empathy. Very simple word. We all have different understandings of the word. And in fact, the Oxford English Dictionary defines it as just the ability of understanding someone's perspective. But it's so sad that the dictionary doesn't go deep. It doesn't explain the different types of empathy. In fact, it's just empathy. Through my time in Russia, we had a chance to go through the 2 different types of empathy. This I learned, and I hold dear. The empathy of the first type and the empathy of the second type. From the pictures that you see, you can clearly see that there is a difference. In the picture to your left, the other man on the shoulder, you can clearly see that he's empathizing and he's looking at whatever that man is telling him in his own perspective. That is what we call the cognitive empathy. That is what we call seeing something from the perspective of the person telling it to you. But it doesn't go deep. Yes, you're empathizing, but it's not going deep. In the second picture, that's on your right, you can see a young girl trying to give shelter to a dog, and it's raining. That is emotional empathy. The young girl is feeling the emotions of the dog. That dog can be anything in your life. Can be your partner, can be your daughter, can be your son, can be your colleague, can be your grandmother, can be anyone. This is what we're supposed to have. This is a feeling, this is a virtue, this is a quality, this is a characteristic that we should all bear. Looking at things from people's perspectives, but imagining that if we were them, then what would we do, or what would we love to be done? And by the way, this is something that you can apply in school, in business, in life, and in fact, in our relationships. Charlie Chaplin, who was once a famous comedian, made the world learn a lesson. He said a very simple statement, but when you think about it clearly, it resonates with millions. He said that you do not need power unless you want to do harm. In fact, love alone is enough. And actually, you do not, or you cannot be able to demonstrate love if you do not have empathy. And from the slide, you can see that even empathy does enhance the ability to love, and vice versa. These are things that we should think about deeply and try to relate with and try to master. I still have quotes that I believe I will always remember for my trip to Russia. The first one being, business is a way of life. Make it a hobby and an inherent part of your life. The second one, not for myself, not for others, but with and for all. This second quote is so deep. It demonstrates empathy, that if we did everything that we do, not for ourselves, not for them, but with them and for them, is something that really mirrors what empathy deeply is. Never forget your roots. Places that we go to, we still have to be anchored in who we are. Roots are who we are. Roots are what we are. Roots are what we believe. Roots are what we demonstrate. And then the last one, but not least, before doing good for others, please and please first do good for yourself. Now, what's my final call? What is it that I want you to learn from this? My final call is always remember to be empathetic, but not just being empathetic. The second type, kind of empathetic, is what we should remember. Spasiba. Thank you.